In this video, we delve into the chilling stories behind the tragic murders of four beloved celebrities whose lives were cut short in the most unexpected ways. John Lennon, the voice of a generation, taken from us in front of his own home, leaving the world in shock and mourning. Marvin Gaye, a soulful legend, whose life ended in a heartbreaking act of violence from the one person he trusted most. Christina Grimmie, a rising star with a bright future, whose life was tragically stolen while thousands of fans were watching. And lastly, Gianni Versace, a fashion icon, gunned down on the steps of his Miami mansion by a serial killer. Join us as we unravel the stories behind their final moments, the events that led up to their untimely deaths, and the lasting impact they left on fans around the world. On December 8, 1980, John Lennon, the lead singer of the Beatles, and one of the most iconic figures in music history, was tragically murdered outside his residence, the Dakota apartment building in New York City. He had recently returned to the spotlight with the release of Double Fantasy, an album he recorded with his wife, Yoko Ono, after a 5-year hiatus from the music scene. That evening, after a recording session, Lennon and Ono arrived back at the Dakota. As they walked towards the entrance, a man called out Lennon's name. This man, Mark David Chapman, had been waiting there for hours. Without warning, Chapman pulled out a .38 caliber revolver and fired 5 shots, 4 of which struck Lennon. Earlier that day, Chapman had approached Lennon for an autograph, and Lennon graciously signed a copy of Double Fantasy. Although Chapman idolized Lennon, he also harbored intense resentment towards him, perceiving Lennon's message of peace and wealth as hypocritical. After receiving the autograph, Chapman lingered outside the Dakota for hours, consumed by a delusion that committing this horrific act would earn him notoriety and a twisted kind of fame. After shooting Lennon, Chapman did not flee the scene. Instead, he calmly remained on the sidewalk, pulling out a copy of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, a book he regarded as his personal manifesto. When the police arrived, Chapman offered no resistance as he was arrested, immediately confessing to the crime. Meanwhile, Lennon was rushed to Roosevelt Hospital in a police car, but he was pronounced dead on arrival, having suffered severe blood loss and organ damage from the gunshot wounds. The news of Lennon's death spread rapidly, sending shockwaves through the world. Fans gathered outside the Dakota, mourning the loss of a man whose music had profoundly shaped a generation. For many, John Lennon was more than just a former Beatle. He was a symbol of peace and hope. The senseless nature of his death made the tragedy all the more poignant. Yoko Ono, devastated by the loss of her husband, requested the public to respect her privacy and later held a vigil in Central Park, where thousands gathered to honor Lennon's legacy. His death left an indelible mark on the music world, serving as a stark reminder of how fame can attract both adoration and dangerous obsession. On April 1, 1984, the music world lost one of its most beloved voices when Marvin Gaye, the legendary soul singer, was shot and killed by his own father, Marvin Gaye Sr., in a tragic incident that shocked fans and the music industry alike. Marvin, known for timeless hits like Sexual Healing and Let's Get It On, was a pioneer in soul and R&B, using his smooth voice and poetic lyrics to address social issues, love, and personal struggles. However, behind his musical success lay a complex and tumultuous family relationship that would ultimately end in violence. In the months leading up to the tragedy, Marvin Gaye was going through a difficult period. Struggling with depression, substance abuse, and financial difficulties, he had moved back into his parents' home in Los Angeles to try to regain some stability. The relationship between Marvin and his father had always been strained, with tensions stemming back to Gaye's childhood. On the morning of April 1st, a heated argument broke out between Marvin Gaye and his father. Accounts of the altercation vary, but it is widely believed that the dispute began over a disagreement between Marvin's parents, which he intervened in. The argument quickly escalated, and his father retrieved a gun that Marvin had given him as a gift months earlier. In a moment of intense anger, Marvin Gaye Sr. shot his son twice at close range, once in the chest and once in the shoulder. The gunshots rang out through the house, and Marvin Gaye collapsed, mortally wounded. His mother, Alberta, rushed to his side as he lay on the floor, but it was too late. The singer was taken to California Hospital Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at the age of 44. News of his death stunned the world, and the circumstances surrounding the shooting added to the sense of tragedy. Marvin Gaye Sr. was arrested at the scene without resistance, holding the weapon he had used to kill his son. He would later claim that he shot Marvin in self-defense, fearing for his life during the altercation. However, his defense was met with skepticism, as he had a long history of volatile behavior. In court, he ultimately pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter, avoiding a murder conviction. He was sentenced to a 6-year suspended prison sentence and 5 years of probation, citing his age and fragile health. Marvin Gaye's death left a deep wound in the music community, cutting short the life of a man whose voice had become synonymous with hope, passion, and social consciousness. His death stands as a painful reminder of the struggles he faced throughout his life, and the turbulent relationship that led to his untimely demise at the hands of his own father. Christina Grimmie was an American singer, songwriter, and YouTuber who gained fame with her powerful voice and heartfelt covers. She started her career on YouTube, where she quickly built a large following with her covers of popular songs. Her talent caught the attention of many, and she eventually placed third on The Voice in 2014, gaining a wider fan base and launching a promising music career. On June 10, 2016, Christina performed at the Plaza Live in Orlando, Florida, as part of a tour with the band Before You Exit. Here's some of the final moments of her live performance before her life was tragically cut short. After the show, she stayed behind to meet her fans, as she often did. Christina was known for her genuine connection with her fans, frequently spending time signing autographs and taking photos, and this meet and greet was no different. During the session, Kevin Loibl, a 27-year-old man from St. Petersburg, Florida, approached her. Without warning, he pulled out a handgun and shot Christina multiple times. Her brother, Mark Grimmie, who was standing nearby, quickly tackled Loibl to the ground in an attempt to stop the attack. However, Loibl managed to break free and fatally shot himself. Despite Mark's heroic efforts and the immediate response of emergency services, Christina was critically injured and rushed to the hospital, where she later succumbed to her injuries. The news of her death shocked her fans and the broader music community. Investigators later discovered that Loibl had traveled to Orlando specifically to carry out the attack. He had no prior personal connection to Christina, but it appeared he had developed a disturbing obsession with her. Loibl's motive for the attack remains largely unknown, as he left no note or clear explanation for his actions. Christina's death highlighted the vulnerabilities that performers can face when interacting with the public. Her loss was deeply felt by her fans, fellow artists, and the Voice community, where she had made such a lasting impression with her talent and kindness. On a sunny morning in July 1997, the world of fashion was shaken by a tragic and senseless act of violence. Gianni Versace, one of the most iconic fashion designers of his time, was gunned down on the steps of his opulent Miami Beach mansion, Casa Casuarina. The morning of July 15th started like any other for Versace. He took a walk to a nearby cafe to pick up some magazines, a part of his daily routine. But as he returned to his mansion and climbed the marble steps, he was ambushed by Andrew Cunanan, a fugitive who had been on a cross-country killing spree. Cunanan approached Versace and without warning shot him twice with a .40 caliber pistol. The scene was chaotic, as witnesses on the bustling Ocean Drive looked on in horror, unable to process what they had just seen. Andrew Cunanan was no ordinary criminal. At the time of the murder, he was already wanted for a series of brutal killings across the United States. He had eluded law enforcement for months, leaving behind a trail of terror. His motives for targeting Versace remain a mystery, though many have speculated about an obsession with fame or a perceived connection between the two. Some believe that Cunanan might have been jealous of Versace's success and sought notoriety through a final high-profile murder. In the days following the murder, police launched an intense manhunt to capture Cunanan, but he remained elusive. Miami Beach was gripped by fear, with many wondering where he might strike next. Meanwhile, the fashion world mourned the loss of a creative genius whose impact reached far beyond the runway. Versace's partner, Antonio D'Amico, and his sister Donatella Versace were devastated, struggling to come to terms with the sudden loss of a beloved figure. The manhunt for Andrew Cunanan ended just over a week after the murder on July 23, 1997. He was found dead by suicide on a houseboat not far from Versace's mansion, having used the same gun that took Versace's life. His death left many questions unanswered, most notably why he targeted Versace and what drove him to such a violent spree. Investigators searched for clues, but without him alive to provide answers, much of his story remained shrouded in mystery. Versace's death was a turning point, not just for those who knew him personally, but for Miami Beach itself. Casa Casuarina, once a symbol of glamour and creativity, became a place where fans and mourners left flowers, candles, and heartfelt notes in memory of the designer. The mansion, now known as the Villa Casa Casuarina, eventually reopened as a luxury hotel, a testament to Versace's lasting influence. Versace's legacy endures through the brand he built and the creative spirit he embodied, but his tragic end remains one of the most shocking moments in fashion history. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to see more of our content, please hit the subscribe button.